Hello, and welcome to Beyond Resistance Pod, where we help build blue power in red communities and start winning. I'm Sarah Schultz.
And I'm Jennifer Austin.
And we're so thrilled today to be joined by our very good friend, Alaynah Smith, also known as Commissioner Smith, who is on the Midland County Board of Commissioners as the only elected countywide Democrat here in Midland. She's one of our big success stories, and we just cannot wait to hear her story and all about her journey. So welcome to the pod, Alaynah.
Thank you. Thank you both. Thanks for having me on the pod.
Yeah, it's so
We are
great to have
super
you.
excited, not only because you're our friend, but also like you are our very, very first guest on
Yeah.
this. So you will always, forever and ever, have that mantle to wear as the first guest of Beyond Resistance.
I feel like I should be your first guest. Y'all talk about me enough, even wedding shopping and everything.
We talk about Alaynah on the pod a ton. So if you're have been a long time listener to our pod, you already maybe even know a lot about Alaynah. And here she is in person. Before we get started, I would love to kick us off with a quick warm up to our conversation. And this is the question I want to ask. So, if your mood today could be described as a form of weather, what weather would it be? If your mood today could be described as weather or something related to weather, what would that be? Give me like a second to think about it while I share my mood. Um, okay, so this is how I'm feeling right now. Do you know how when you're it's like super sunny out, like super sunny and hot, and you've been like outside, like I don't know, like on a beach or like out playing a game or something, and you've been outside maybe a little too long and you come inside and it's like 7 o'clock, but you're suddenly like, oh my God, I am exhausted. You're just sort of like weathered and sunbeaten, and you're just like, what time is it? Did I have dinner? Maybe I should get a glass of water. That's what my mood is right now. I'm just a little bit like weathered right now from all of the things coming in from all directions. And so that's my weather. Who else would like to share? Alaynah or Jennifer? What weather exemplifies your mood today?
I can say mine. Mine is a thunderstorm because I'm a little irritated, but I'm also ready to strike back. So watch out.
That's awesome.
I would say that mine is kind of like a spring rain, um, kind of like calm um and just like full of potential, and it has that like ooh, it's spring feeling and just like
Oh,
excited about what's to come.
I love
Oh,
that.
I love that.
That's so great. That's so
And
great.
it's so you.
Yeah, no doubt. Maybe Jennifer and I can join your weather for today.
That's part of why we keep Alaynah around. She just makes me happy.
One of the many reasons. Well, Alaynah, again, we're just so thrilled for you to join us on our pod today. You're here for lots of reasons, and you're a good friend of ours, and all the political work that we do in this space in Midland. But your story is unique because we know that this journey that you've been on to kind of come to be in the seat that you're sitting in as a commissioner in Midland County started way back when you were a kid, right? Doing like activist work, I'm sure, all the way through to working in campaigns, and then having a campaign yourself, and then being elected and serving. I have to say you're the best public servant I've ever known. You take the job so seriously, and your commitment to our community is just exemplary, which we all knew it would be when we supported you in your run. And so I wonder if you could take us back to those beginning sparks to begin with. How did you get started just thinking about just community involvement and activism that then grew into running for office?
So I really give a lot of credit to my mom, Dawn, who taught me to be an amazing advocate and be involved from like a very early age. I mean, I was going to protest and strike union strikes before I even knew what they were, you know. And I remember stopping on our way to Florida for vacation and going to a strike and protesting there with them all day. And it's just what you did. My mom was a very strong union member, very proud of her involvement in that and the community that it built. Um, and my mom had me grow up in community with lots of people and just showed every day that that was what was important and that other people survived and made it through because we were their community and we survived and made it through because they were our community. And so I kind of grew up in that. I will say the things as a kid when I was protesting weren't always quite the same things. Like we went on a lot of right to life marches, a lot of protests, things like that. The first political rally I remember ever going to was George Bush's rally. Um, and um, and then and then I became an activist. I started getting politically involved in 2016 when the woman group started. That's where I met both of you. And I met honestly so many people in my life. And that's where I started becoming more involved. I had canvassed a little bit and done some political volunteering before that, but not a lot. And so then I started getting involved. I started really spending a lot of time volunteering with campaigns. Sarah is one of my best friends, and I pushed her every single day to run for office. And
Sure.
pretty much just annoyed her into it. And so when she finally gave in and said that she was going to run for office, I felt I obviously couldn't leave her hanging. So I became her volunteer coordinator, and that was my full-time job for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, Alaynah, I'm not sure if you should get credit or blame for my initial runs for office and all of that stuff, but probably both, probably both. And I mean, I really like appreciate you talking about this evolution, right? Of like, especially like the kinds of things you were like protesting and focused on, and then like how that evolved. But mostly like this idea of community. One thing Jennifer and I have talked a lot about on this pod, and we do a lot in our writing, is just like how critical it is that we see this not as like one person running for office, but when we're really trying to like create the systems within communities to turn, voters around, to have red voters start voting blue. It's really about like being not transactional with people and really building up a community regardless, right, of like who you protested for before or whatever. And just really cherishing those evolutions.
Yeah, and I was hoping you would talk about the driving to Florida and stopping to help protest, because that's one of my favorite stories about your mom. She's one of the first people that I really connected with in the Democratic Party here. And at what point? So I mean, your mom clearly was into a lot of Republican politics and Republican beliefs, union member notwithstanding. At what point does she start switching, or you started switching, or you both did, to where like you were both involved in Sarah's campaign, and because your mom was as much involved in Sarah's campaign as you were. So at what point did you guys start changing that a little bit?
I would say it gradually happened throughout when I was in high school, and then a couple years after that, I would say. My mom always, and this is even when I was a little kid, even when she did consider herself a Republican, my mom would always say that the country does better spiritually when Republicans are in charge, and does better economically when Democrats are in charge.
Interesting.
And she even always admitted that. And she was really when it came down to it, she was mostly a one issue voter on the issue of abortion, and she and it became, and she, because she's tried for so many years to have children, and it became very important to her, and she eventually, we talked about it. I started going to school for social work and reading about it, and I'd come home with, Mom, do you know that that it's really important for people to have Medicaid or food stamps, and that if that's available, that affects how many people have abortions. And she was, wow, well, I never thought about it like that. And so she very slowly just kind of changed her beliefs. And then like I said, she became part of the community, and we both did. We all, my mom, myself, and my little sister were at the very first woman meeting.
It's true.
And we kind of just jumped in whole feet. And my mom very quickly was like, oh, well, these are good people. Oh, well, I always heard these people were bad and scary, and they're not. And and my mom just had she very much she was very much, even if she considered herself a Republican, she was very much still against Trump and against the meanness that he has, and just that was so antithetical to her belief system that, well,
Yeah.
why would we treat immigrants like that? Like, Jesus wants us to welcome everyone,
Mhm.
and so that was very much her mindset. And so yeah, we just kind of jumped in with both feet, and um and kind of never looked back. I think we all just lived at the office during Sarah's first campaign.
True.
I know my mom would be there. I mean, I would be there all day, and she would be there all day too. And she was like the office mom, and was making sure everybody felt supported and loved and had food, and it really made a difference in building community. And
Oh, for
so,
sure.
and then the following campaign since then, I've worked hard to try and make the office a homey place, and a place that people feel accepted, and where everybody has a purpose. And even if someone comes in and has no idea how to do anything, and is terrified to talk to voters, and doesn't want to
Yeah.
go canvassing, or is in a wheelchair and unable to go canvassing, there's always something for everybody to do. And
Yeah.
if there isn't, you find something, because
Mhm.
there is something, and then people are like, wow, I'm needed, I'm part of this. And then they just feel part of that community, and then they'll want other people to experience that community, and they'll reach out to them, and they'll keep coming back, and it just
Yeah.
grows like that if you can
Yeah.
make people feel accepted and valued and loved.
Oh man, I'm so glad you brought that up, because you and your mom are just like great examples of that. And it's something that we talk about a lot, about just like meeting people where they are, not treating them in a transactional way. And also this idea, I know, Jennifer, you and I talked about this a couple of pods ago, about how courage inspires courage. And so if you can
Mhm.
take this one little step today, maybe it's
Yeah.
literally just walking into the office, then tomorrow you'll go a little bit further, and the next day you go a
Mhm.
little bit further, and the next day you'll bring a friend, right? And it just continues to grow. And if we treat people like that and think about it that way in these communities where we're trying to build blue power, then we can do that and sustain it over time, versus just waiting every 2 years or 4 years during election cycles and calling people up and asking them for money, or to do some
Yeah.
canvassing or whatever. So it's that
Yeah.
cultivation over time
And
that
it
I know that you and your mom have had really like
yeah,
have
and
brought out in that.
it makes friendships. There's so much that I do with folks that I've met in politics, or met while doing different campaigns, or while being an activist, that we do, that have nothing necessarily to do with politics. I think of the malls that always give me lettuce from their garden every year when they grow lettuce, and then
Yeah.
other people I make jam to. And then there's Robin and Carol that are teaching me how to make sauerkraut. And it's just, and they're people that we know and love, but that now we're so entwined in each other's lives. You know, you're babysitting their kids, somebody else is coming over to water my dog while I'm out of town, you know, just kind of stuff like that. And you're all connected, you're a community.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to say, like, for one thing, it starts with that connection point of policy and politics and activism. But then, you know, it becomes so much more of you know, being connected and creating a network of friendships and reliance on each other, you know, like that community that you can rely on when you need somebody. And I will even go back to the point about like finding something for everybody to do, which can be difficult. As an organizer, it's like, okay, I got to think of something, but you actually, I mean, I have made up things that do not need to be done, but it gave people something to do and it gave them a purpose and it made them feel better and feel included. And then they were there for something else. And then they were there for something else.
Yeah, it's so important. So Alaynah, thanks for taking us to that part. So now we're up to this place of like, you know, you have this background in activism, you've worked in some campaigns, and you make a decision to run yourself for public office. Can you take us to that decision? What was easy about that choice? What was hard about that choice? How did you come to that?
So, I was first presented with the idea at our friend Molly's house, and at first I was very skeptical. I had something that I think a lot of women struggle with is, am I qualified enough to do this? Do I have the skills? Am I ready for this? Am I old enough for this? Am I, you know, whatever enough for this? That I think so many other, namely white men, don't seem to struggle with. And then I really thought about it. By that time I had graduated with my master's in social work, and with social work, I am very interested in kind of the policy level things and how different programs get funded and money gets allocated and decisions that are made in those programs. And so it kind of seemed like, oh, I do have the experiences. I literally have a master's degree in this. I I know my community. I know the people in it. I think that I could represent what they want. I think that I do a good job listening to them, and I could do a good job listening to them. And so I decided to do it. I decided to run. I will be honest, I didn't really expect to win. Um, I was optimistic that I would win and become a commissioner, but I didn't expect to. And so we just started talking to everybody and their brother in the community, and just talking to everybody and meeting people where they were in different parts of the neighborhood. And yeah, and so it gradually grew. And then that night, I thought that I had lost, and I went to sleep thinking that I had lost. And my fiance woke me up and told me that I won, and I was in a complete shock. And then I won, and I became a county commissioner. And I realized that the first like couple of meetings, it was again that same, like, am I ready for this? Am I able to do this? And then I realized that it is just that kind of community level policy work, making policies for our county jail or for our county health department, and prioritizing, do we want to hire this person? One of the early decisions that I made was, or that I voted on and did get passed, was to approve a nurse practitioner for our local community health department. And with that, we were able to add 2 more forms of birth control, the IUDs and the implants in the arms for folks in Midland County to be eligible to get, or to be able to get. We didn't have anybody who could install those before. And now we do. And that's like a positive, tangible thing that's in our community, that I even know of people who have gone and gotten it and been able to receive that service. So, and previously they wouldn't have been able to.
Awesome.
Yeah. And you cast the deciding vote on that, right? You got to be there.
I did.
decision maker. Such a great legacy here.
And not only cast the deciding vote, but your background, your information, your ability to sway other votes helped to keep, make sure that happened.
Yeah. Very much being able to advocate for stuff like that. I've been able to advocate for expanded protections for county employees through the Elliott Larson Act as that has expanded. Yeah, I think that I've been able to do a lot of good, by being a county commissioner, I've been able to be a part of other organizations like that oversee funding for the local community mental health and Department of Health and Human Services and Pinecrest. We have a senior living facility in our county. And it's been amazing. It's been so much better than I could have ever even imagined it would be.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you talk about going to meetings with such a twinkle in your eye, Alaynah, that I've never seen before when it comes to meetings.
You are meant to do this kind of work. And I feel like I have to point out to everybody. So I'm going to, I'm going to let you do it. So I want you to talk about the difficulties that you have been presented with, your job, your life, your schedule. Like, you have made sacrifices to do this act of service for your community, and why it's difficult for young people, working people that maybe don't own their own business or have a flexible schedule or aren't retired, etc. Like, talk to us about that.
Very much. So Midland has 7 county commissioners. And when I was elected, I was the only one that that either didn't own my own business or wasn't working full time or was already retired. And I didn't, so I had a full-time job when I was elected to the county commission, and I had planned on keeping that full-time job. And then
Alaynah, will you share what that job was that you had?
Yeah, so I was a case manager in an ICU for the local hospital here in Midland. Well, in Elma area, yeah, and I love that job. I was very good at that job. It was another way to serve the community. And I asked for meetings, to be made either earlier in the day so that I could go before I went into work, or later in the day, or even in the evening. And was told that was not possible. And so the meetings were flat in the middle of the day on Tuesday. And oh, by the way, I had meetings on Wednesday mornings, and I had meetings on Thursday afternoons, and some Friday full day meetings, and some Monday full day meetings. And it just kind of, it wasn't possible to work my full-time job and become a county commissioner. So I had to go down to casual to my full-time job, or from my full-time job. And then so I was working, I went from working a full-time job where I was paid very decently to becoming a county commissioner where I was making, I believe, about $9,000 a year. Which is not a whole lot of income in today's economy. But I did have several people that say, you can't do this, you should just quit. But it was really important to me that I was elected, and I felt like I could serve my community, and I wanted to do it. I felt I was good at it. I felt that I was a voice that needed to be on the board. I was by far the youngest person on the board. I was the only Democrat. I couldn't even fathom stepping down. It would have been wild. And so my partner and I made it work. And we did it. And it was hard financially, but it was also hard emotionally, being the only Democrat and having a lot of expectations or stereotypes that people thought about me. I had a lot of before I was elected, there was a letter to the editor saying, that I was a radical socialist and I needed to stay out of county politics. It wasn't my business and, all that kind of stuff. And so I love being liked. I like when people like me and appreciate me, as most humans. And so it was hard going into a place where a lot of people you could tell coming in did not like me and were kind of scared about me and what I would do and if I wanted to burn the whole county down or so
Yeah.
It's so wild. Like anybody that knows you would be like, she's this lovely human being who just wants to help people. Oh my gosh.
I know. Well, I'm sure, I hope that I've thanked you privately, but let me just thank you publicly, Alaynah, for deciding to stick with the county commission thing. You had every reason to not, right? Once you got all of that, those roadblocks to be able to balance, your full-time job and your elected position. And this community is far better off for having you sit on the board. And we would have all understood if you had made a different choice, but I'm glad that you were able to make that work. And you've been able to shift around your work for since this last election and this last county leadership kind of shake up so that you're able to make a better balance between working full time and your role as a commissioner.
yeah, so I'm now in my second term as a commissioner, my third year. um and it is very different. I have been able to get a full-time job that works around my being on the commission, which has been very helpful. um um Still with the hospital. And so now and there's been a lot. I won't say that my relationship with all the commissioners are perfect, by any means. There's definitely disagreement on some issues. But for the most part, we do treat each other with more respect. And I've established friendships with some of them. And um, I think there's more of a realization that, again, oh, this person isn't a scary person. Like, she wants the best for our community too, And so there's been growing from that on both sides. And I've, come to understood some of their decisions better, and they've come to understand some of mine better, I think. So
That's awesome. And what's striking me about your story, right, from the time that we started talking about your mom and her evolution to you working with other folks on the commission and their evolution is when we get to the local level, there are pockets of just exactly what we want out of our leaders and our elected officials and our friends and people involved in politics. And that is actually seeing each other, hearing each other, being willing to actually listen with an openness to change your mind with new information. And so your stories about your mom and how she's evolved or how she was able to evolve and how along with you, and then your stories about how you working on the commission kind of evolved your thinking of commissioners and their thinking of you, all of it to the betterment of the community and the state and the country. And in this space of all this divisiveness and people just in their corners unwilling to come across and have even just civil conversations nationally, we're able to find these examples locally, and it's capitalizing on that's really going to make the difference for communities who are thought to be conservative to actually make that shift. So thank you for bringing those stories to this space. And thank you for all of the amazing work that you do and continue to do for our county. And all of that. And I know, Jennifer, you had some kind of final questions for Alaynah before we left.
So I want to hear, since our podcast is about helping people in red areas build blue power, what is something that you would tell somebody that was thinking of running for office that's, maybe a Democrat or an independent in an area that's red or reddish, or, who what would you say to them? What advice would you give to somebody that was thinking about running for a local office?
I would tell them to always have hope and to keep trying, because there are so many things that I never thought that I could accomplish. If you just stick with it, that you are able to do that. And I would also say to always be willing to suspend judgment and talk with people, because you don't ever know what you're going to agree on somebody with until you talk with them. You could be like, this person is, oh my, like, nope, we have zero things in common.
Yeah.
And then maybe you both really care about the flooding in Midland County, or maybe you both are really passionate about runoff from farms. You know what I mean? You never know what it is that you might have in common with somebody and that you can align with them on. And so you can start building those relationships, building that community by talking to them.
I love that. That's great advice.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. Well, we're just about at time. Usually we end with a question. And I wish I had one. So I'm going to do this. Oh, you have a question, Jennifer?
I do, but it's sort
Go
of
for
more related to like podcasting. So I don't know. I mean, Alaynah could answer this one too. So my question was going to be, what has been the most difficult part of podcasting so far? So we can each say what ours is, and Alaynah can say what she found difficult about today.
I will share the most difficult part. I don't know if this is one difficult part, I think, for me, right? Is that I'm a planner. Like I'm an editor. Like I'm an internal editor. I want the right words to be chosen. I want to be able to consider the shape of things and all of that. And it took me a bit in this space to realize that actually, it's much better to just show up as your authentic self, to have a conversation, to not worry so much about all the editing internally, and then just not worry so much about post editing afterwards, and just have a natural conversation. And so that was, to me, like getting through that kind of, mental hoops to come to a place where I felt comfortable just like shooting the shit and recording it and then getting it out there in the world.
Yeah. Mine is sort of like it's two things, but they connect. And this is actually one of my things that I have a problem with in real life too, is losing my train of thought when I'm listening to somebody and then I forget what I want to say. And conversely, like if I'm listening to respond, then I'm just thinking about like what it is I want to say. So then I'm not listening to them. So that's a thing that I struggle with in-person contact and also here in the podcast.
Yeah, that's good. And then you have like, oh, I remember there's that thing I wanted to say, and shoot.
I'm going to start having a pad of paper and just like jotting down things so that, I can remember. And then I can truly listen to whom, listen to Sarah or Alaynah or whomever.
Oh, yeah. But that's when you're in the like, oh my gosh, I'm too prepared space. And then it's like not authentic. So maybe we should just have a podcast in the future. That's just all of the stuff that we thought better to say later.
Yeah.
Alaynah, what about you? I know this is your first podcast recording, but I know you had to get ready for this one and all of that stuff. What was the hardest part for you?
I think you guys both have really cool backgrounds, and I don't have like a place in my house that like is quiet where I can do that. And so I stressed a lot about where I was going to be. Like I was like, should I go to a coffee shop? Should I be home? Do I need to go sit in my car? Where should I be when we talk?
Well, you did a good job.
Yeah. Made some good choices. And to defend where you are, I sit in this chair all day for work, right? So like my background is like cultivated over years.
And I've been, since Sarah had such a cool background, and literally like I've started adding like this painting is new, or it's not a painting, like this is new and the bookshelf is new. Like I've been adding things because it was just a vanilla wall behind me before.
Oh, goodness. Well, Alaynah, thank you so much for being our very first guest on the podcast. And I hope to have you back again. Any parting words to share?
Um, no, other than I'm so glad that you guys are doing this. Um, it's I've been listening and you guys are doing an amazing job and I can't just wait to see where this goes.
Oh, thanks, my
Us
friend.
too. It's fun and we
Yeah.
really want to help people. Like that's the
Yeah.
whole point. We just want to help people.
That's right. I mean, to reiterate, the point of all of this is like we've done something in Midland. We have been working for the past almost decade, right, to kind of shift the whole landscape politically here in an area of Michigan, which is a purple state, right? So we're like all this focus is on us. And we've been working so hard to like make this really groundswell shift here, the three of us plus so many others. And nobody's out there really like learning from these lessons. And so we just got tired of waiting to be asked. Um, and we're just going to start sharing it with the world in the hopes that other people can learn from our experiences. And Alaynah, your story is a huge part of all of that, of course.
Yeah,
Um,
and actually, I was going to say, I forgot to plug. I was recently on That's What She Said podcast. You can find it on all the basic platforms, Apple, Spotify, etc. It's with Christiana Malakara, and she interviews women in the Great Lakes Bay region and just talks about the things they do. And she talked to me about, myself as the Dem chair and our podcast. So I got to plug that for a little while. But any listeners that want to check that out, I would go ahead and do it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And as a reminder, so this is the Beyond Resistance podcast where we help local communities build blue power in red areas and start winning. So join us next time. Thank you.
Thank you. See you right later.
Bye.